For the Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers regular meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 25th. It's 9 o'clock. We are in the Shoreview City Hall Council Chambers. Let the record reflect that all managers are present. Nick, you've got one change apparently to the agenda.
Yes, Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, I would just like to add a new informational item, new number 1 there. I would call it precipitation events and the Rice Creek Watershed District landscape. Just short follow-up from some of the things I've been sharing with you at past meetings.
Is there a PowerPoint?
No,
Kidding.
it's verbal,
Just
verbal.
Wonderful.
It'll go something like this.
Any other
Allowed.
changes to the agenda?
Here.
Tonight, can I have a motion to set the
No other changes.
So move.
second? All in
Second.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. All right. Approval of minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the September 9, 2024 workshop and September 11, 2024 regular meeting minutes as identified in your packet. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none. All right. Consent agenda. Patrick. Anyone have any questions of Patrick? Can I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of application number 24-058. Walters MRF LLC
By approval, you mean a cap rack.
of Caprock. Yes, I should read this.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right. I believe that takes us up to open mic. Anyone wish to say anything to us on open mic? So,
I don't have a PowerPoint. Christopher Stowe, 426 Pine Street. I went to the city hall meeting at Lionel this week. And I have some confusion because when I was told that the culverts on Pine Street and West Pine Street were lowered, that the Rice Creek Watershed District controls those culverts. But at the last meeting here, the next one downstream that crosses Andel Street, I was told that Lionel Lakes controls that one. And that the elevations were at the correct heights. But they're at the old correct heights, not the new ones, because you've lowered the pipes upstream. So now I'm being told that they're Lionel Lakes pipes. They're gonna fix the inlet. And then we haven't checked downstream further because it's still flooded out. But who controls those pipes? Because I thought I was told by the city of Columbus and the city of Lionel that they control the ditches, but the culverts is controlled by the Rice Creek Watershed District. So when you lowered the culvert north of me, you guys did that, but now south of me is the city's problem. But it needs to be lowered and increased in size. And then further downstream, I just wanted to show you that the last rain event during the summer, the ditch that runs through my property that goes to Robinson Sod Farms that it's in the FEMA floodplain that they now want to haul more dirt in there. So I'm going to be flooded out even worse. I just want to show you a couple pictures of the ditch. There's a picture of the ditch and there's the Sod Farms in a rain event.
wow.
Yep,
Mhm.
I saw that.
Can't be good for the sod.
Now, if they build in that area and they build up the dirt for the houses. Here's some more.
Yeah.
It used to be a lake. They've been hauling and filling there for over 50 years.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's on both sides of the road. Also, the roundabout that they just put in at the border of Lino and Blaine. That roundabout that they put in there, it's lined up perfectly with the ditch that heads north that drains West Pine Street. So they're gonna have to move that one over. But my concerns are, it's already in a floodplain and then they want to do development there. The other concern I have is that the city of Lino Lakes now wants to drag in city sewer and water there, and it's gonna cost the taxpayers over $3 million for land that's currently zoned agricultural. So they shouldn't be doing any of the work they're doing until we have this 10-22-32 thing figured out. because it's a disaster. And the pipes downstream for me now, I don't know if you guys control or the city of Lino controls, but I'm told the elevations are correct. But they're off the old drawings, and then you guys lowered both West Pine Street and Pine Street culverts, which floods me out more. Then I was talking with Dave Ryback. He bought some land in Columbus. And he's saying part of his property used to drain to Coon Creek, I guess, which is different than the Rice Creek. But the Coon Creek stuff now, they've developed all that over in Blaine, so his property's getting flooded out and his trees are dying out where his woods are. And the water's being forced over from Coon Creek into the Rice Creek stuff. So it's flooding even worse. Just thought I'd point that out to you guys. City Hall is gonna fix the inlet on that one, but it needs to be lowered and increased in size. I don't need to be an engineer to figure that out. Water flows downhill. Thank you.
Chris.
Mr. President, members of the board, so I'll talk about a couple different things. One is regarding the ownership of the culverts that are under the roadway. So, you know, the Rice Creek as the drainage authority is responsible for the drainage system. However, any of the culverts that are along the drainage system that are under a roadway are the responsibility of the road authority. That said, the district does identify when those roadway culverts have been either undersized or too high and thus constituting an obstruction to the system. And the district has collaborated with the cities in order to get those culverts lowered or to the proper size when the district identifies that. And then with regard to the floodplain, the district does have a rule for floodplain management that requires any property or property owner that places more than 100 cubic yards of fill within a floodplain to mitigate that fill, meaning they have to excavate somewhere on their property in order to compensate for the amount of floodplain volume that is lost in the system. So if fill is brought in on a development, then the property owner is going to need to, as part of that development, determine where they can excavate to make up for that difference in volume. And definitely something we've anticipated. We've identified floodplain mapping in that area you're talking about, and that and we do recognize that there's a very substantial portion of that area that's within the floodplain. And so any development work that would occur there is going to need to have that replacement work done.
I agree. The problem that I'm having right now is both the culverts that cross into Lino Lakes. Lino Lakes wasn't officially notified on those, and if they're their pipes, once they cross that line, somebody messed up somewhere. Because you lowered the pipes north of me once again, but you didn't lower any of the pipes downstream of me, and you didn't increase the sizes. So now we have storm surges going on, and that's why the sod farms are getting flooded out even worse. And when they're underwater, I'm underwater because the whole system can't take it. It's literally spilling over the banks of the 1022-32. And you're saying that the culverts now are the city's responsibility, but why did you guys then lower the pipes on Pine Street? That should have been a joint venture between the city of Columbus and the city of Lino Lakes, and I should have been notified immediately because I would have gone down there and said something about it. Like, you can't lower the stuff upstream without lowering the stuff downstream. And that did not happen. So there's some liability stuff going on now too.
Yeah, Manager Bradley. The district, including its inspection staff, have been hard at work on 1022-32. You've done a records affirmation, I'll say, and confirmed all the work downstream. I would simply ask Mr. Otterness if all the survey work that was done and such, are the culverts consistent with the ASIC?
Yeah, for the work that has been completed by the district, yeah, those elevations are consistent with the ASIC. We have done a repair report in the past to identify the capacity of the culverts and identified that the capacity was sufficient based on those metrics. And we do have a report that'll be forthcoming that is going to talk about those culverts on Pine Street, specifically in relation of those two other ones downstream.
Manager Bradley? Board of Managers, this was this, Mr. Stowe has been before you before, and we said we'd put this on the
That
October
was my
workshop.
request, yes.
Yep, and that's the memo that Chris is referring to. As far as the work that the district does and its communications with the cities, that is done. We do work with and collaborate with those entities, and notification is consistent with the statutes that exist. Now, as you all likely know, the capacity of the system is the capacity of the system. Things that go beyond that, let's lower this culvert, let's increase this culvert size, et cetera, are what are called improvements to the system. And that is a whole different matter beyond the maintenance that you're undertaking here.
Well, you did an improvement of the system then upstream of.
The
me.
district's done no improvement of the system, Manager Bradley, and I
You know.
would suggest we move on.
I think we should, you guys, if I can recommend something, come out to Pine Street, about halfway down Pine Street, look at the ditch, and then look at the 1890 surveys. And look at the grade of the road and how now the water in the ditch flows the opposite of that of the grade of the road. They literally took ditch 10, combined it with ditch 22, combined it with ditch 32, and are sending the water literally uphill towards my place. And then they had to lower the ditch because they ran out of elevation, and that's why the power poles are under mine and leaning towards the street.
On yours, had something to say.
So to say that the numbers are all good is, look at the original 1890 survey, you're allowed to go a foot deeper than that. You already did, and then you went another 13 inches.
So, Mr. President, this whole 1022-32 complex isn't just a question of what's under, in my opinion, what the capacity of the drainage system is, the ditch itself. Because there's so many places where there are muck soils that were not, that allowed drainage to go through. And the district, as a stormwater conveyance authority and system, isn't limited just to the 103E portion, which is the capacity of those ditches. We should be, and haven't in my opinion in the past, adequately taken into consideration what the roads do to those areas that are adjacent to maybe the ditches that have the muck soils, and the flowage of water through those muck soils that no longer takes place any longer and has to go through, as one of our consultants refers to, a straw, is a problem. And so the district has authority to take a look at groundwater, and I don't mean groundwater down 300 feet. I'm talking about just below the surface, and how that water flows there and doesn't flow, and the capacities of it. And the district also has authority, I think, I know you're scowling at me, Chuck, but I think we have authority to work with the cities to do planning for stormwater conveyance systems under the B rules. And so this is a situation that's happened many, many times in the past because of the piecemeal approach to things. But in this case, this is active at this time. And I think it's important that the district not just consider what the elevation of the culvert is and what the capacity of the actual drainage ditch is, but also what was in the road situation in 1890 when they were built. What is the impact of building a road through a wetland muck soil area versus impermeable soils, you know, and how that impacts that area, because then that's how we get these lakes or canoe things. I remember pictures, if you before you were on the board, Mr. President, of the same thing over on ditch number 55, and where we're putting all those homes in over there on the west side. So I think that when we have our workshop, we need to look at more than just the E portion of the law, but what we can do about working with these cities for the other part. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Might I suggest, as has been suggested by this board, to bring this to a workshop item? Because I feel like sometimes open forum turns into an agenda item, and it's really an opportunity for us to hear the concerns of the residents, and then for staff to either take the direction of the council or, excuse me, the managing body to put it on a workshop agenda, or otherwise it just doesn't seem appropriate to dialogue this matter during an open forums, as open forum is for the residents to come and share their concerns with us. So I would ask that we move on to the next agenda item.
Look, I agree.
Yeah, so we have,
I don't
disagree have-
with what Manager Waller said.
yeah, we
Neither
have asked,
do I.
we have asked
Yep.
that this item come back before us at the workshop, and it
Yep.
will. And we've previously worked and talked to the city of Columbus about the need for systemic planning. This is something that the little silo that we possess can't fix. So let's move on.
Yes,
Nick?
Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, we'll move into the items requiring board action. The first item is the Stormwater Management Grant release. Will is here to walk through that with you, and I see that it starts on page 34 of your packet.
Yeah, morning, President Bradley and Board of Managers. Yes, Nick noted, today I have for you the program documents for the 2025 Stormwater Management Program. These documents were presented to the CAC in their draft form at their September 4th meeting. And then following some recommended language by the CAC, those documents have been further revised to include those approved motions by the CAC. So I'll just walk you through those changes with you here quickly. All the new language in those documents is tracked in red as well. So starting with the program guidelines document, which it starts on page 37 of the packet in section 1 application. There is some new language that would add some volume control estimates along with the other modeling requirements that's been added, as well as a requirement that potential applicants schedule a pre-application meeting with both staff and the district engineer. Intent behind that language is just for to help facilitate discussion on the project, allow for staff and the engineer to provide some input on what additional information could be added to their potential application, and then to also get a understanding of what the potential funding ask may be as well. The next proposed language is in section 3, which is funding availability, local match, and eligible costs. So that is starting on the bottom of page 37 and carries over to page 38. So here, this is the CAC made a motion to approve some language that expanded the section on ineligible activities. So this new language would added includes that entities that projects that are proposed by entities that owe funds to the district would not be considered eligible for this grant program. The next proposed language is in section 6, which is design and maintenance. That is on page 39. This is again a CAC requested language. This would say that as part of those maintenance plans, that a schedule for long-term maintenance activities be provided as part of that maintenance plan, and that until that maintenance plan has been provided for district staff to review, that disbursement of funds be held off on. Also note there is a small grammar typo in that section as well. It's for staff, it's current language is dispersed, word should be dispersed. So difference of a P and B in there. And then in section 7, bids and permits, on page 39. So this is just adding some language that states, the awarding of a grant does not supersede any permitting requirements by entity that a project may be required to obtain. And then the last new language in the program guidelines is on page 40. This is a new section for reporting. This was like language that was discussed at length at the CAC meeting. Basically, this would be a new requirement for applicants to essentially submit an annual report at the end of the year for each year the grant is active. It would also also spells out kind of what reporting details applicants would need to provide, and an updated timeline at the end of each year, just to keep the staff informed on what work has been done, what work still remains to be done. And then the next proposed language is in the application form that is on page 42 of your packet. For section 7 description, this is language that would be asking the applicants to specify if the responsible party is different than the project officer, that person be identified who will be responsible for long-term maintenance of the project. And then on page 43, section 10, measurable outcomes. Again, this is more language kind of pertaining to the reporting requirement that the CAC has to be included in the new program language. And then in section 12, project readiness. Again, this is just asking that applicants identify they have determined whether or not their project needs a permit from an entity, and if so, where they are at in that process. And then, so following the proposed language changes by the CAC, the grant agreement has also been updated on page 45. So it is section 1A in the grantee's responsibilities. So again, this is just language including that reporting requirement into that grant agreement as well. And again, I will note there is another small typo here in section 1D. I believe the dates for project completion and submittal of expenditure documentations are October 30th, 2026 and December 31st, 2026. Those will be updated accordingly to be October 29th, 2027 and December 31st, 2027. And then so those conclude the major changes for the documents this year. And then the RFP has also subsequently been slightly revised, just to note that applicants should review the program documents in depth due to provisions made. So with those changes, it's staff's recommendation of board authorization for the program and solicitation of applications through release of the RFP, as well as the approval of the Houston Task Order 2024-008, which is for the review of applications later this year.
Manager Wagaman.
I just had a couple kind of nitpicky questions, but on page 34, in the bottom paragraph, it talks about will not consider projects from entities that owe funds to the district. Is that mean funds in arrears, or, I mean, does that mean if they have another project going, they're not eligible?
They wouldn't owe money if they've got a project going, so it'd be.
Well, I mean, if they're
It's in
paying
arrears.
on a project and they still haven't made all, I mean, we haven't.
The intent was if they owe us money, but they haven't paid.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. And then another,
I say that because I was there.
okay. And one other question I had was, on page 45. Yeah, under number A, it says the district for the administrator's written approval not to be unreasonably withheld. And I'm just curious, unreasonably is pretty subjective, and I'm not sure what latitude you have there. Maybe that's the right way to say it. It's actually right here, Mike. About the 1, 2, 3, 4, like the fourth line down on A. I'm just curious what unreasonably withheld by the administrator. I'm just curious. That's awful subjective, and I'm just wondering maybe that's fine if there's only a small latitude of what you're gonna be looking at or whatever, but I'm not sure what that means.
So we're looking on page 45 of the packet.
Yep.
Under I.
Yeah, grantee responsibilities under A, it'd be the fourth line down.
Five words before number 3.
A2.
Yep.
Section I, A2.
Yep. Yeah, you're right, right before number 3.
Mr. Chair.
Chuck is.
Chuck,
I'm happy to speak to that.
we're happy to have you speak to it.
Thank you. That's part of the existing boilerplate language, and that's a standard formulation where we're giving the other party the opportunity to present something different from what the agreement provides. And we want to retain the discretion to decide whether that suits us or not. But we want to give some assurance that we're going to deal in good faith, and not just make a random decision. So
Okay.
it's a standard that applies to the administrator's decision that says, we'll take your request seriously and in good faith, but we still ultimately decide whether that is agreeable to us or not.
You're saying reasonable is reasonable in this, in this instance. Okay, that makes sense. And thank you. And I had one last one. I was just curious, how much, do we have any idea what the cost difference is as far as, are these causing a lot of extra cost in applying? I'm just curious as far as, but well, I'm more wondering about just the cost for applying for the program. We don't want it so expensive that people don't apply.
Hasn't been a problem so far.
No, it has not, but we're changing we're adding a bunch of stuff, and I'm just curious I mean, are these very expensive things or are we not?
President Bradley, Board of Managers, I would think not. These are fairly routine things in plan development and looking for the foresight of how does one follow through and maintain what they're proposing.
Yeah.
So it's good food for thought, if you will, as they're going through it. And these are things that routinely come up in the engineer's review and as we collaborate with these entities to fully understand what they're intending, and then what does the future look as they get it on the landscape and move through it. So I would say the work here that Will has done and the work of the CAC is to get it more in the forefront. So we're all thinking about it ahead of time and those questions aren't surprising when they come up.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question, if I
Certainly.
could. Okay, so forgive me because I am not a stormwater management grant expert. And I notice a majority of the red language in here, as you have identified, is regarding the reporting in the aftermath. So I have a couple of questions regarding that, I guess. The requirement for reporting, is it based on, previous grants that maybe have been granted and, standards weren't met? I get the want and desire for like before and after, right? We want to ensure that our investment, we make that commitment to the applicant and that we want to make sure the work is done. But some of the language in here, like requiring people for up to 10 years to report to the district, that seems a little excessive to me. I mean, again, we want to ensure that our grants are going to the right place and that the dollars are being used as requested, but a 10-year, like that's 10 years of book reports. That seems a little crazy to me. I would think that the reporting period could maybe be done when the district can ensure the project is completed to its standard. I mean, that to me seems a little excessive. And then I guess if there is going to be a reporting requirement, is there a reporting template? And by that, I mean, like an actual template of what information you want them to provide, because I know I probably would just not apply for a grant if I was required for 10 years to give a book report to the watershed on how my project looks. And now there's a bird nest in it, and now I have beautiful wildflowers or whatever the case may be. That seems excessive to me. So I certainly, to the cost question, you don't want to the ultimate requirements to be burdensome to the applicant. Like I said, I wouldn't apply if I was required to give 10 years worth of reports to the grant giver. That just seems a lot to me. So is there a rationale behind the reporting? Have we had failures, so to speak, in the past of applicants not making good on their? And again, I'm not an expert on this, so I'm asking genuinely.
Go ahead.
So first off, these grants are requested by cities and organizations, not individuals. So you're not going to have a $500 rain garden in the midst of this. It is standard practice for any state grant, and I think ours is that you get a chunk of public money, you are required to operate and maintain it for 10 years.
Okay.
So that's what the O&M portion of this is here. So it's standard
That
and
is
reasonable.
Okay.
Any money that's distributed, whether it's from the watershed and or state funds,
Okay.
the O&M is there. I would also say about this is that I was on the CAC for a couple of years while we would be reviewing the applications. And some of those applications came in not totally thought out. So year after year, the application is becoming more and more clear. And to have those applicants speak to the folks at the watershed prior to applying can save a lot of time, and maybe the project's not ready this year, but with some assistance, it would be ready next year. So the CIC has really played a important role here in not only talking about what the application looks like, but I think even more importantly, seriously reviewing the applications and lining them up.
Yeah.
I do have another question, but go ahead.
Well, I just, on this point, I was thinking of just two examples. Iron and hand sand filters, which can be qualified for these things, require, as we've personally know, yearly maintenance in terms of weed pulling, and you have to replace the sand from time to time and things. So that's an example. If you have a saffle baffle, as White Bear Township has gotten a couple of grants for saffle baffles, those have to be cleaned out. And so I think all this is doing is saying, we know that you're going to have to do maintenance on this. How are you going to do it? So go ahead. Yeah, another question.
Well, my question would be, how long have we been doing these grants? And has any of the particular projects met the 10-year mark at this point?
Easily.
Easily.
Well, I've been here this is my 10th year, and we've been doing it every year since I've been here. John, do you have
Okay.
any idea?
Offhand, no, but you're correct that we've been doing stormwater grants for a long time. And I don't think we've had the requirement for them to operate and maintain them is true, but I don't know that we've had necessarily a continuous report on that annually from each city as to what they were doing or not doing in their grant money. And I'll leave it at that. I mean, I think 10 years is probably of operating reports is probably excessive. Well, it is not probably, is excessive.
Yeah.
And it's in my viewpoint. But I'll wait for the motion before I start to seriously complain.
Oh, my goodness. Can I ask a quick clarifying question? Just based on the language that's in the packet, it identifies potential applicants being cities, counties, school district libraries, and other public and private entities. So private entities being residents within the district as well are allowed to apply for these grants?
Nick?
I missed a question. I'm sorry.
It's
Manager
On
Robertson.
page 36 of the packet, like just that opening dialogue indicates that applicants for these grants would be, the grant fundings to assist cities, counties, school districts, libraries, and other public and private entities. Private entities, is that equal residents within the district? I guess that's why I'm asking.
yeah,
Listen, I'm
yeah.
fine to make it difficult for government to make good on a grant
no,
ask,
I
but if
just-
it's residents, then I would say let's not complicate it. Government has the resources to do complicated things. Most of the time, private residents don't. So
Well, it
that's why
seems
I'm
to me
asking.
that it's not been private individual. It's like
Uh,
churches or.
Yeah. President Bradley, Manager Robertson, the general frame of the district's grant programs, the stormwater management grant here, private entity, I would say Land O'Lakes, Boston Scientific,
So business.
big corporate campuses type universities, those are my recollection of what is meant there. The public, a resident, a mom and pop, if you will, is more our stormwater management grant, because the size of their property is typically significantly smaller, and the capacity of the property for any size of BMP is significantly different. So that's the general frame. Now, could they apply there? I think certainly. And I think it goes back to the whole element of what Will has brought before you is early, good communication. What are you intending? Who's all involved? What does it look like? Are we even aligning with the framework that we have and our experience to date for them to be successful in it?
I understand that. And I actually appreciate the language about a like a pre-application sit down with staff. I think that's super important in any planning process, especially a grant, because it can be an extensive process. Again, I just wanted to clarify that since it's listed in that way. I understand, and I know you referenced like churches. There was the church in Roseville that did a very large stormwater runoff rain garden, beautiful project, I think in 2 chunks, if I'm not mistaken, because it was as large as it was. Again, I'm not picking on the language. I appreciate the CAC doing this work. Quite honestly, I do not have the experience, and I have stated that, but I don't want to make the aftermath of the grant process any more difficult than it needs to be. And that's my only comment.
Yeah, and just to add a point of maybe some clarification, again, like the 10-year requirement that is listed on page 43, it's what the language is asking for is essentially, providing like asking an applicant to provide a maintenance plan of like what activities will be taken within that the first 10 years of the project, as those are generally considered kind of the most crucial to upkeep and maintenance, ensuring functionality. The actual reporting aspect would only be an annual report for each year the grant is active.
Okay.
So if it's, if a grant is only active for the 2 or 3 years of the agreement, they would only be required to submit 2 or 3 reports, which would be pretty, I believe would be pretty straightforward enough for city staff to provide. Just wanted to provide some of the clarification.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Again, I just don't want the aftermath to be more difficult than it needs to be. So I appreciate the clarification.
Mr. President, what does the word active mean? You're talking about active, just what the devil does that mean?
Not completed?
Well,
I
I mean, are you talking about the project having an operating plan on it? And the operating plan is, are you talking about the actual construction period is the active part of the grant, or? Because once a project is finished and the grant has been made, I mean, where does this active begin and end is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so the, staff's intent would be when using active for that reporting would be the lifespan of the agreement itself. And so it would be up through like December 31st of 2027 would be when we'd be wanting those reports.
Okay, well, that's time frame makes quite a bit of difference in what active is versus the discussion of 10 years.
Chris has a comment.
Yes, Chris.
Yeah, Mr. President, I just noticed one item that I think might have the potential to be misinterpreted. This is on page 38 at the top. The first sentence that was added regarding project proposing the maintenance or repair of existing stormwater management infrastructure and eligible for the stormwater grant funding. So the wording of that would imply to me that any project that would have some component of it being repair or maintenance would, make the whole project ineligible. I think the intent was to make ineligible those project components themselves that are related to maintenance. And so maybe what I would suggest is maybe amending that to start with project components which are intended solely for the maintenance or repair of existing stormwater management infrastructure are ineligible for the stormwater grant funding.
Well,
Mr.
that's,
President, thank you. Thank you for this, because I've got right at top of my thing, it says, I'm not gonna vote for this, no support, I wrote down on a note of mine here.
Oh, my gosh.
Because of that, that's, that language, has, is just too broad. And I think it goes against, maybe some of the things that we want to do is encourage, the cleaning, for example, of stormwater ponds, which is one of your issues. And that's an existing infrastructure piece. And then the next sentence that goes on here, the additional starts additionally projects that are proposed by entities that owe money. Well, I don't remember too many outfits in my time here of 18 years and sitting in these board meetings since the 70s where somebody owed money to us. So I think that's kind of a small area. Now, we might have a current discussion at the moment, but to make a stormwater grant program saying you're ineligible. So to me, I know we don't have a motion yet, but this is what, see, Chris? I had it underlined and I just, the whole thing, oof, no. I think that language shouldn't be amended. I think it should be struck. The whole red lines up there, all 4 of them or 3 or whatever they are.
so Mr. Chair, to my point of operation and maintenance and asking how long we've been doing this. What happens when the 10 years is met and then you have to have some repair? Is the city or the other entity stuck with keeping that up? So Chris, I think you took care of it there. The other clarifying question I have is, so this is the stormwater management grant. And we have the $500 mini grants. We also have a grant in between. What is the name of that grant? Where the shoreline, where people,
And rain gardens. and-
yes.
Manager
Rehabilitation.
Bradley, Manager Wyman, Board of Managers, that is the water quality
Right.
grant, which
Okay.
we periodically have collaborated with our municipalities where they have a road project, and then we utilize or leverage that with the community for multiple rain gardens on private property in the right of way and such.
And shoreland and. all that.
Shoreland,
So-
yes, it's been used in different ways, which demonstrates the broadness that each of these programs may take on. Simply Will's working here to have some clarity on what the frame would be.
So that's the one I think that private entities with cost share can do some of the water quality work. Thank you for clarifying that. And then the mini grants is $500 to do your rain garden or a small project.
Plantings,
Thank you.
yes. Yeah, just one more thought, Board of Managers, my recollection of the CAC meeting and the language on the top of 38 in regards to owing funds. If I'm not mistaken, that came from a member of the CAC that had business experience or what have you, and had a situation where people were asking for more, and it's like, we still have outstanding fees owed to us or what have you. So
I don't remember the details, but I know that there was at a time during my tenure in which we had like 4 cities that had made a promise to, as a result of prior grants, to provide credits or something back to us. And we gave them options of either you pay us the money or you comply with your agreements. We eventually got them to do it, but it was,
Yeah.
this would give us some opportunity to See, come on, we gave you a grant and you agreed in as part of the grant to do whatever. We expect you to honor it before we give you more money.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
just really quickly, a question. This gets reviewed every year, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, so I have no problem with what is being proposed now. I appreciate the clarification. Quite frankly, I didn't know. That's why I asked these questions.
Mhm.
I would, however, make a suggestion for maybe the next year is kind of the undertone theme that I'm getting is, like you've mentioned, what does this look like 10 years from now? What's the investment going to be? Maybe work that into your ranking criteria, the longevity of the project and what additional maintenance costs may or may not rank it higher or lower than another project request, since that seems to be, your iron sand filters. I think we have 2 in Blaine, one with this watershed and one with the other one. So I get it and I completely understand that, but maybe work that in to the ranking criteria as you look at the following years. I think it's great that you review it every year. Maybe this works, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's wonderful, the new language, all the things. So I don't know where the exact resolution is in the packet.
35? Page 35.
Are we on 35?
Yes.
There we are. Then, Mr. Chair, I would move to authorize staff to initiate the 2025 Stormwater Management Grant Program and notify potential applicants of funding availability by publishing the attached request for proposal.
I'll second that. Any further discussion?
Does that include the clarification that?
That was-
Oh, the
Chris had
proposed
said-
language amendment.
With Chris's amendment
Yes, then,
The typos corrections.
and the typos.
okay,
Yeah.
good gosh.
You
All right.
Never started, no.
No, it's okay. No, I think this conversation was actually really productive and I think it was good dialogue. So no, I have no problem doing that. Okay, so then let me recraft my motion then and I may send it over to Chris just to make sure we get the language correct. Authorizing staff to initiate the Stormwater Management Grant Program and notify potential applicants of funding availability by publishing the attached request for proposals, including spelling errors as indicated by staff and amendments of language on page 38, item 3.1, to include language that reads,
Project components which are intended solely for the maintenance or repair of existing stormwater management infrastructure are ineligible for stormwater management grant funding.
we get it? We cover it all, Chuck?
And I
We
second,
did, I think.
I second the amended motion.
Thank you.
Now discussion.
Mr. President, I'll be voting no with you on this, based on the language that's on 38, those new 3 lines in red. That's just unreasonable in my viewpoint and unnecessary. And in my experience and time with the district, this just isn't a big enough problem to actually put that kind of language in here when we haven't experienced that. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Passes 4-1 with John Waller voting no. Next on the agenda.
I think we have a second motion related to this item.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
And it looks
Yes.
like I will make that a motion, moving to approve the HEI task order 2024 I think it's 008. It's not filled in here, but I believe it's 008. For engineering review of the 2025 Stormwater Management Grant Program applications.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Moving on then.
This is check register and Mr. Chair, I move approval of the check register dated September 25th, 2024 in the amount of $259,132.30 and the September interim financial statement prepared by Red Path and Company.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. That takes us to the
Manager,
new one.
yes, thank you. Manager Bradley, Board of Managers, my short informational update. Precipitation events in the Rice Creek Watershed District landscape. In the last couple of meetings, I've been holding up these DNR maps, which show their analysis of water levels in the various watersheds of the state. In the past year, we've been at high flows all summer, particularly wet. April through August, finishing August, we're 140% of normal precipitation. We're way up on the 95th percentile. Wettest April to June on record. But then we've dried out a bit here in September. But we still remain well above the normal precipitation for the year.
6 inches. I just heard it the last night
Yeah.
news.
So it's getting dry in Minnesota, and I've seen on the, the weather report or what have you, and we need rain. We're drying out. And in my mind, I'm going like, this is conflicting. I look like a fool in front of the board. So I'm here to clarify what you're seeing here. So I have spoken extensively with Matt on this. The hydrologic region of the state that includes Rice Creek is roughly 25% storage, lakes, wetlands, that sort of thing, against the upland. Rice Creek's is 30%. So we're well above the region. Coon Creek, our neighbor, is 24%. So we have a heck of a lot, 30%. Meanwhile, the slope, the drop in the landscape across the watershed district for the region, it's 7.76 feet in a mile. Rice Creek is 2.23, 2.25. So we are very flat. This creates a bathtub, if you will, that holds the water with limited ability to drain. When we only look upstream of Long Lake for the district, storage is 33%, even higher, and the slope is 1.9 feet per mile. So again, it's even very concentrated or exacerbated in certain parts of the district. So the district is very flat, very slow to drain. So that offers us context of whatever comes to the district and how we're viewing it, that this is one element of it that the board and of course all staff and consultants should be aware of. So what's the current condition? I've been saying it's flooding. They're telling me it's drying out. Where are things at? Clear Lake, top of the watershed. Water levels have been high all year, consistently above the ordinary high water mark, and they're dropping slowly. So we're still at record elevations there. White Bear Lake, water level is up. This has, been a area of great concern after, 2 years of drought. So we're nearing the long-term average. The lake isn't outlitting yet, but it's filled up a lot. And when you see the surface area size, that's a heck of a lot of water to hit that small watershed that it has, the areas that actually drain to the lake. Going on from there, so Rice Creek, and this is one that maybe struck me strongest, because I would think if things are drying out and so on, this number would be lower, but the current flow on Rice Creek at our the USGS monitoring station is 80 feet a cubic feet per second. The average for this time of year is 55. So we're well above average, and it's still, it's dropping, but it'll take a significant amount of time. So take home message, lots of storage, lots of wetlands on the landscape, a lot of lakes, which, is, I guess, a blessing and a curse. I know the city of Columbus deals with that. They've said, we only have so much property that's available for development, et cetera. So lots of storage, very flat, and we're very slow to drain out. That's why I wanted to share. Thank you.
I'd almost ask you to repeat that again. I think I understand what
We
you're
had a
talking
lot
about.
of rain. It stopped raining a lot, but we still have a lot of water on the ground.
And we're only 2 feet, we dropped in the upper portion of the watershed, the slope is 2 feet per mile?
Correct. 1.9 feet per mile in the upper part north of Long Lake. So what the
Whoa.
means, even if the district wanted to, we're challenged by what Mother Nature has given us. And so even if you wanted to dig it deeper, what you end up doing is you're only making ponding areas, if you
Mhm.
will. You cannot,
Yeah.
because you're all, by the time it drops, you're already in the receiving water downstream.
Mr. Chair? Nick, could you just send a summary of that and maybe attach the DNR map or whatever that map is? Because
Yeah.
it's not in the packet. So could you just
No.
send a summary with the attachment that you're referring to?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Yep,
That would
we'll
be
get that. for you.
So, Mr. President, I think the administrator's report demonstrates the importance of noting the impact of the roads that are built through these permeable soils, creating impermeable structures and limiting the drainage, because even though that makes it even slower and wetter.
And we actually have ditches running backwards.
Yeah, and the need for the district then to have a bigger picture look at things when we're working with the cities here.
They need to work with the cities here.
We do.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with that at all. But I'm saying that the cities don't look at it that way, haven't in the past. So there's a cultural barrier there from them and the counties and any road authority. But it's important to start to consider what the impact of that lack is. So
Just
anyways,
you've had your time
I
today.
didn't know if I could comment on
So-
final piece that, just that reiterates that dropping that pipe 13 inches. I've lost that much, and the ponding that he said is absolutely correct, because I'm experiencing that at my property.
Manager Bradley,
Yes.
the next agenda item would be the staff reports.
Anyone have any questions or comments on the staff reports?
No, sir.
The only comment I would have, Mr. Chair, is I certainly appreciate them, and it looks like you're getting a full team put together here. So congratulations. No small feat recovering from a number of open positions that we've had for a while. So thank you.
Yes.
I think the next item then is the October calendar,
Administrators.
Yes.
page 97.
President Bradley, Board of Managers, there was a little bit of discussion beforehand. I'll note that the October calendar does not include the Bald Eagle Lake delisting celebration. It's October 17th at 7 p.m. However, the address was called into question. There's some concern whether that's correct or not.
I'm pretty sure that the address, maybe she looked up an
This is
address
the-
for
yeah.
the boat thing, and she found the business run by
Mhm.
the successor to that operation. They've always met at just across from the VFW, about 200 feet across the road from the VFW.
Okay.
And it's a nice little room.
that
So-
complex is called the Boat Works.
Yeah.
It has a big sign on the
Yeah.
side of it, 61.
So
Versus a business called the
And
Boat
there's-
Works.
It's, if you're never familiar, there's an aqua restaurant right next to it.
Yeah.
And there's a parking lot, public parking lot, free parking.
Mhm.
Pull up, the door opens up. Park, when you want to leave, just pull up, the door opens, you leave. So there's plenty of off-street parking available for free.
Wonderful.
Yes.
President Bradley, I'll share, we will confirm the address. We will update our notice if necessary. We will communicate out any change accordingly to you good folks and of course, all the postings that we have.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
A quick note on the CAC meeting. Yes, I will be there on October 2nd. I may be running a skosh late. I am coming from an event at City Hall at 5, so I may be just a little bit late, but I will be there.
They'll be glad to see you. They will.
Okay.
So, okay, so I think we now are to administrator update.
Yes, Board of Managers, a couple items to share with you. I continue to work on the Blue Thumb logo transfer to Metro Blooms. This was a remnant of our past work with Metro Blooms. And they're working through detail on another entity that has a similar logo. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens there. In regards to our public drainage systems, Ramsey County Ditch 4, we had some people come to the board and speak to that regarding bank stabilization. The survey of the banks is complete. We're working through the quantities and the estimates, basic detail sheet from which a contractor could undertake the work. So we'll be looking to get some quotes for that. Drainage and related on Nook County Ditch 102232. We're waiting for the DNR position on the rare and endangered since our last communication and what that might be as we bring that Pine Street permit back to the board for consideration. There was some discussion about the completeness of the record and the Coon Creek minutes and such. Both Coon Creek and the City of Columbus were subject to a Data Practices Act request. As you'll recall, the material were reviewed by the engineers as pertains to 102232. It's my understanding Tom has reached out to Manager Wagaman to look at those materials and
I got
And-
them this morning. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yep. And then I did have a number of copies. If any of you would like those materials as well, they are available to you as well. I'll note that I did engage with Jack Davis. He is the administrator at the City of Columbus. Had a good conversation about all things Columbus, but then this Joe Drell Street and the whole situation came up, made note of it, probably multiple issues contributing to it. I extended once again to him, here's the important part, the cost share study of the area, if there was value in that. And I think that value comes from their examination, their land use plans, the engineers to talk about the parameters that might be included in any such study and to see if that's viable and supportive of both entities. I'll just note of Rice Creek options as these things come up. You know, we're the Public Drainage Authority. We maintain the system and it's consistent with the records that exist, et cetera. Permits, we work on working to mitigate the impacts of development on the landscape and how it's going to affect landowners downstream in that. So we work to have that contained within the property and such. And then otherwise, we have studies and projects, and like I just shared, we've worked with Forest Lake and many of our municipalities on, well, let's study this sub-watershed, see how it might be improved or bettered as development continues and or redevelopment. And those come to you for consideration. Moving on. There's several updates that are coming on administrative matters on the horizon. I intend to bring them to the board meeting versus a workshop because from my perspective, they're rather routine or just necessary. This would be update of the records retention policy that the district has to a new version consistent with it, update our policy handbook. There's currently a limitation in how our staff use vacation time, limiting up to half-day chunks. That's challenging when we have staff that know they have an obligation. They're trying to get out of the office and it's like, hey, I just have to send this to the accountant. It'll take me an hour and I'd like to have the rest of the day off. So I think that increased flexibility is is warranted there. We have to update our definitions of exempt and non-exempt employees. As a Department of Labor, we want to be consistent with that and align there. And also want to strengthen our public purposes for expenditure, for training, recognition, and apparel, which we spoke about, although a long time ago, under the previous budget. A note, I reached out to Gallagher on a memo. This was part of they owe us an annual update of where salary progression is going or the economy is moving and how it impacts salary. So we'll see what they have to say there. That's everything.
Sure.
I'm sure. Yeah. Happy to answer any questions.
Managers update, John. Mr. President, I had another resident report to me. This resident lives up on Forest Lake in 180th Street area near the pipeline that crosses Judicial Ditch 2, that they had signed an easement with the Northern Gas Company to put in a third pipeline. So it's no longer a rumor, innuendo, hearsay. It's an actuality taking place. So I would ask the administrator and Tom Schmidt and Patrick Hughes and John Kolb. They're the three that are involved in that situation. That although we haven't heard from the company yet, they may not be ready, but put it on your calendar so that we don't let it go by and we kind of check in with them, because signing an easement sounds like to me it's a real project.
Manager Bradley, just to be clear, if I'm reading Patrick's nodding, they've been in contact with the district for the proposed work. So
More so that I did speak with John ahead of the meeting.
Oh.
So.
Yeah.
On the radar, you know.
What Patrick told me is he hadn't heard yet,
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
but he was accepting my notice.
Appreciate it.
So I think that's what it is, just to give the notice to the ditch inspector, the permitted inspector, the attorney that handles that. And then forgive me for forgetting the engineers. I forgot. They should know too.
Okay, RC,
I have nothing.
okay, Steve?
I have nothing here, stuff for the workshop, but not
Yeah.
here.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to share at this time.
Okay, very good. I'll just note that I was at the CAC meeting and I was quite impressed at how they came forward with ideas and suggestions based on their annual reviews and their frustrations with the process and trying to make the process better. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.